I got off the bus, my feet aching after my shift. My phone buzzed non-stop with congratulatory messages. My acceptance letter to my dream university had arrived. I almost sprinted home, bursting through the front door to share the news. Mom was at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. I waved the acceptance letter in her face. It happened, I got in. I expected a hug or at least a smile. Instead, she just said, "There's no money left." At first I thought she was joking. My dad's savings were supposed to be locked away for my tuition. He'd left it just for me before he died. Mom didn't look guilty, she just shrugged. "I used it," she said casually, like it was no big deal. I felt my stomach twist. "Used it on what?" My heart pounded. Her eyes flicked up. "Stop being so greedy," she snapped. "Don't nag me about money. Go to community college like everyone else." I'd never seen her so cold. Tears welled up, but I refused to cry in front of her. Everything Dad worked for, gone. My dream shattered in a single sentence. I stood there, feeling my world tilt, wondering how things got this bad. Back when I was little, Dad made me feel like the center of the universe. He'd pick me up after his long work shifts, even if he was tired, and he'd spin me around until I giggled. I remember how he smelled faintly of coffee and engine oil. He worked 2 jobs to keep our household afloat. He used to say, "Angela, you'll go to the best university one day." I clung to those words when he got sick. At 13, I helped around the house, taking care of my younger brother, hoping to lighten his load. But the lung cancer advanced fast. Stage 4. We barely had time to accept the diagnosis before he was gone. I was 14 when we lost him. Mom cried a lot at first. She blamed the doctors for missing the signs. She blamed the hospital bills for draining us. But Dad had saved specifically for our future, making sure me and my brother would never have to struggle like he did. He swore the college fund for me was untouchable. After he died, I told myself I'd honor his promise. Every time I felt lost, I recalled how he'd pat my head and say, "I believe in you." Now it feels like that belief was wiped out the moment Mom decided the money was hers. I stormed into the living room the next morning, clutching my acceptance letter. "Explain, where's the money?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but my fury spilled out. My mom barely looked away from the TV. She paused her show, sighing dramatically. "I invested it," she said, waving her hand around like it was obvious. I was trying to turn it into more. My heart pounded. "Invested where? You told me we were just saving it. How could you do that without telling me?" She rolled her eyes. "Why are you acting so entitled? College is expensive. Not my fault you're picking some fancy school." She stood up, crossing her arms. "Just go to community college, it's not the end of the world." I couldn't believe how dismissive she was. Dad's fund was the only chance I had to get away, to chase my dream. This was Dad's money. You promised to protect it. Her face twisted. "Promises don't pay bills. Stop acting spoiled." Suddenly, she turned it on me, yelling, "You're the ungrateful one. All I did was try to help. Why do I even bother?" My cheeks burned with anger. She stomped off, leaving me trembling, acceptance letter clutched in my fist. I locked myself in my room, laptop open to that acceptance email. I kept rereading it, half hoping I'd misread the financial requirements. But it was real. Tuition, housing, books. Dad's fund was supposed to cover it all. Instead of celebrating, I felt a pit in my stomach. How could Mom do this? Dad's sacrifice? Wasted. He worked endless hours. Sometimes he'd come home so late, I'd be asleep. He'd slip notes into my lunchbox, "Keep dreaming," or "Proud of you." I held on to those notes for years. Now I felt stupid for trusting Mom. She offered no explanation, no apology, just cold indifference. Even worse, she acted like I was the one at fault. When I tried to talk to her again, she just shrugged and said, "Move on, Angela. Life's tough." I cried so hard my eyes stung. I kept imagining Dad's face, how proud he'd be seeing my acceptance letter. And then I thought, if he could see what Mom did, he'd be heartbroken. A mix of grief and rage churned inside me. My dreams felt crushed. I wanted to scream at the universe for being so cruel. As I sat there sobbing, I promised myself I wouldn't let Dad's efforts go to waste. Later that week, I was cleaning out the hall closet, looking for old files that might contain any clue about the missing funds. Instead, I stumbled upon a shoebox shoved behind dusty blankets. Inside were crumpled casino receipts, betting slips, even screenshots of online gambling transactions. I froze, checking the dates. They spanned 8 months, only her most recent ones. Thousands upon thousands of dollars spent. Some receipts were for single nights of gambling that cost more than a semester's tuition at a community college. My stomach dropped. This was the so-called investment? She'd lost everything in casinos and online bets. It made me sick. Every time Mom said we didn't have enough for groceries, she was actually funding her habit. Every time she said stop wasting electricity, she was probably saving up to gamble. I confronted her immediately, slamming the shoebox onto the kitchen table. "What is this?" I demanded. Her face went pale, then turned defensive. "Where did you find that?" "You have no right to snoop." Her hands trembled, but she tried to keep her cool. She didn't deny it, just snarled at me. "Don't judge me. You think you're better than me?" I realized then it wasn't a mistake or bad investment. She chose to gamble away my future. I tried talking to Mom calmly, hoping she'd show any remorse. Instead, she flipped the script. "You think you're so perfect," she hissed. "At least I'm trying to help this family. Stop acting like some spoiled princess." Her words stung. When she saw the shock on my face, she raised her voice, yelling so loud the neighbors could probably hear. She accused me of disrespecting her authority. Then she told extended family I was uncontrollable, making up wild stories about her gambling. Suddenly, texts from my aunt and cousins turned frosty. My uncle called and told me I needed to apologize. I was floored. She was turning them against me, painting me as an abusive, ungrateful daughter. One by one, my relatives believed her version. She repeated phrases like, "Angela is unstable, and she's just selfish." They sided with her because she was older, and maybe they feared confronting the truth. I felt trapped. If I told anyone the real story, they'd accuse me of exaggerating. If I stayed quiet, my future slipped further away. My tears were replaced by anger. I knew I had to do something, anything, to expose the lies and reclaim what Dad left for me and my brother. Out of nowhere, my phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Maggie, Dad's sister. She never really spoke to Mom, and I always wondered why. Now I knew. She wrote, "We need to talk. This isn't the first time." We met in her car, parked at the edge of town. She kept glancing around nervously. "Your mom had a gambling problem for years," Aunt Maggie said quietly. "Your dad forgave her every time, even when she stole his health insurance payouts to play at casinos." My head spun. Health insurance funds? She stole from him while he was sick? Aunt Maggie nodded. "Your dad knew, but he believed in second chances. He was convinced she'd change." She gripped my hand. "Angela, I never trusted her with the college fund. I'm so sorry your father didn't see this coming." My mind reeled with memories. Mom's sudden new clothes when Dad was in the hospital, the hush-hush arguments late at night. I'd been too young to piece it all together. My anger shifted into a strange sadness. Dad had tried to keep his promise to me, but his own kindness had become a blind spot. Aunt Maggie's eyes filled with tears. "Don't let her get away with it," she whispered. "He left that money for you." Aunt Maggie hinted there might be paperwork Dad left behind. Determined, I tore through every old box in the attic. Behind a stack of dusty photo albums, I found it, a sealed envelope marked Last Will and Testament. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, it clearly stated that the life insurance payout and the savings were for my education. It spelled out that some money could be used for family upkeep, but the bulk was reserved to ensure I could attend any university I chose. Tears blurred my vision. Dad had planned everything, protecting me in writing. That night, I confronted Mom with the will. She barely looked at it. "He's dead," she said coldly, flicking ash from her cigarette. "What's he gonna do about it now?" I felt something in my chest snap. I had started recording audio on my phone secretly. Her lack of remorse, her casual cruelty, it was all there. She saw me recording and grabbed for my phone, but I yanked it away. She sneered, "You're making a big mistake, Angela. Don't test me." But I saw her eyes flicker with fear. She knew the will was a bombshell. I knew I finally had leverage. I replayed the recording later, heart pounding. Her voice dripped with disdain. "He's dead, so what if he wanted her to have the money?" Hearing that again fueled my rage, but also my determination. This wasn't just a family dispute now. It was betrayal. The next afternoon, I pressed her again for answers, brandishing the will in front of her. She tried to slap it from my hand. "Stop obsessing," she screamed. "You're lucky I put a roof over your head." I stayed calm, refusing to back down. Her voice rose, and she stumbled over her lies. The details of her investments shifted each time she explained. First, it was a stock opportunity. Then, it was a friend's business venture. Finally, she just snapped. "Mind your own business." I sensed she was terrified. Maybe the receipts, the will, or the audio recordings were scaring her. Because that night, she banged on my door, raging. "Don't you dare try to take me to court. I'm your mother," she shouted. I locked the door, phone ready to record any threat. But I couldn't fully calm down. I realized I wasn't safe in my own home, and I still didn't know how to fight back, yet. A few days later, I was alone at home. My younger brother was still at school. I was microwaving leftovers when someone pounded on the front door. The force shook the frame. Heart racing, I opened it just a crack. A strange man loomed there, glaring. "Where's your mother?" he demanded. I froze. "She's not here. Who are you?" He shoved an envelope at me. "Tell her she's got 7 days to pay up. I don't care what it takes. I want my 10 grand. 10 grand? My chest tightened. This wasn't just casual gambling. These were serious debts. Before I could ask anything else, he stormed off. I stood there, stunned. The envelope had a scribbled IOU with Mom's signature. That evening, she came home and saw the envelope on the table. Her face went red. "Why didn't you open the door?" she spat, as if it was my fault. She snatched the letter, muttering curses under her breath. I realized then she was in deep trouble. If she didn't pay, who knows what that man or others might do. The situation was spiraling. She cursed me for sticking my nose where it doesn't belong. But I knew, if she kept dragging me into her mess, someone would get hurt. Panicking about the money, I reached out to my old high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Reyes. She'd always told me I had potential. I explained everything in hushed whispers over the phone. The stolen college fund, the acceptance letter, the gambling debts. She didn't hesitate. "Come see me," she said firmly. "We'll find a way." I met her in her small office, the walls lined with inspirational posters. I felt like a kid again, but also strangely safe. She listened intently. "I can help you apply for emergency scholarships," she offered. "There's also a local legal aid group that might take your case pro bono. And," she paused, concern in her eyes, "I have a small fund for students in crisis. It's not much, but it can help you get started." Her kindness overwhelmed me. I'd expected pity or shock, but she acted like it was fixable. Like I had options. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I told her about the threatening man, about how Mom called me selfish. She patted my hand gently. "You're not alone," she reassured me. "We'll get you to college. Don't give up." For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in my chest. Mrs. Reyes pushed my scholarship application through faster than I thought possible. Within a month, I received notice. I'd been awarded a partial scholarship. It covered my entire tuition, but not housing or meals. Still, it was huge, enough to get my foot in the door. I jumped for joy, tears rolling down my cheeks. I'd done it. Well, we'd done it. My dad's dream wasn't completely dead. When I told Mom, I expected at least some relief. She just rolled her eyes and sneered, "Congratulations, don't expect me to visit or pay for anything." In that moment, I decided to let her negativity bounce off me. I was going, no matter what. I started preparing for college orientation. My acceptance letter was now more than just words on a page. It was my ticket out of this toxic house. That night, I lay in bed, imagining myself on campus. The scholarship was only partial, but I could work part-time or apply for more aid. Anything was better than staying under Mom's roof. I had no regrets. If I had to scrape by on noodles and a bunk bed, so be it. Nothing would stop me from walking through those university gates. While finalizing my FAFSA paperwork online, I noticed something odd. There was a flagged 529 college savings plan listed under my name. Confusion washed over me. Wasn't my college fund basically gone? I dug deeper, calling the plan's customer service. They told me the account had originally held around $60,000, Dad's money. Then it was closed 2 years ago. A wave of nausea hit me when they read a note on the account. Account closed due to student dropping out. Funds transferred to custodian. I'd never dropped out of anything. My mother must have forged the paperwork to drain the account. Pure rage filled me. It was no longer just a stolen inheritance, it was outright fraud, committed while I was still a minor. Armed with these documents, I felt my heart pounding as the reality sank in. She had lied, forged official documents, and stolen from me. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to scream in her face. But I knew better. I'd gather everything, step by careful step. I hung up, my fists trembling. Dad never would have imagined his careful planning would end up fueling Mom's gambling addiction. And I wasn't about to let her get away with it. The campus legal aid clinic agreed to see me. I walked in, feeling small and out of place in the waiting area. But once I showed the supervising attorney my documents, proof of the forged signature, the closed account, the will, her expression changed from polite interest to serious concern. "This is substantial," she said, flipping through the pages. "We're talking financial fraud, exploitation of a minor." She explained that I had grounds for a civil lawsuit and possibly even criminal charges against my mother. My stomach churned. Criminal charges? That felt so extreme. But the attorney was calm and direct. This wasn't a misunderstanding. She falsified legal documents. That's serious. I stared at the evidence in front of me. My hands felt clammy. I never wanted to put my mother behind bars. Despite everything, she was still my mom. But she'd left me no choice, especially since she kept gambling and lying. The attorney placed a hand on my shoulder. "Think about what you want. It's your decision whether to pursue both civil and criminal routes. But legally, you do have a case." I left the clinic with a head full of questions. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about me standing up for what Dad left me, and for myself. Word traveled fast. Within days, my phone blew up with angry texts from family. My uncle raged. "How dare you threaten your mother with a lawsuit? She raised you." My grandmother left a voicemail, voice trembling with disappointment. "Stop this nonsense and come home." It felt like everyone was turning against me. They believed Mom's sob story, that I was ungrateful, that I wanted to take everything from her. My heart pounded each time my phone buzzed. I dreaded more accusations. One afternoon I heard a knock at my dorm room door. I braced for more confrontation, but when I opened it, our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Dolores, smiled softly. She'd babysat me when I was a kid. She loved children and had always been kind. She held out a steaming casserole dish. "You must be starving. I heard about the trouble at home." Then she slipped an envelope into my hand. Inside was a check for $500. I teared up, stammering, "I can't accept this." But she insisted. "I always knew you were the only adult in that house, Angela." Her voice shook with empathy. "Use it for books or groceries for you and your brother. I'm here if you need anything." Her kindness felt like a lifeline in a sea of cold shoulders. After a long day of classes and a late work shift, I trudged back to my dorm, dreaming of collapsing into bed. But the moment I walked in, my stomach flipped. My drawers were rummaged through, my laptop was missing, and papers were strewn across the floor. Campus security arrived quickly, scanning for forced entry. They found none, which meant whoever did it likely had my key or was let in by someone else. Fear crept up my spine. Who could it be? Then a friend whispered a horrifying tip. "I saw your mom in the admin office earlier today. She was asking questions about you, trying to get your records. She claimed you were transferring schools." Chills ran through me. I suspected she'd broken into my dorm, trying to find any incriminating documents. The thought of my own mother sneaking around, invading my space, made me sick. Was she so desperate to protect her secrets that she'd resort to this? I reported everything to campus security. They couldn't do much without solid proof. But the message was clear. If I didn't drop the lawsuit idea, Mom would do anything, even sabotage me. My hands shook as I picked up the scattered papers. I realized I wasn't safe at school either. I rushed back to the campus legal aid clinic, breathless and rattled. The supervising attorney listened to my story about the break-in, her face growing stern. "We can file for a restraining order," she said. "And we should move forward on the civil case. She's escalating." Though I never wanted to see my mother in a courtroom, her actions left me no choice. The attorney explained we could seek damages for the stolen fund, plus emotional distress. But there was also the looming question of criminal charges for forging documents. My hands trembled as I signed the paperwork. The reality was harsh. Taking her to court would be messy and public. She could lose her job, maybe even custody of my little brother who was just 12. I pictured his face, quiet and scared in that house, yet I couldn't back down. She was still gambling, still lying, and apparently willing to trash my reputation or ruin my dorm. If I let her go unchecked, who knew what would happen next? Before I left, the attorney told me gently, "Remember, the court will see everything. The more evidence you have, the stronger your case." I nodded, feeling both empowered and petrified. The fight was truly beginning. I snuck back home one afternoon when I knew Mom would be out. I needed a childhood keepsake, a small wooden puzzle box Dad had given me. Slipping inside, I found my brother huddled in the corner of his room. His eyes looked swollen from crying. He clung to me immediately. "Mom said you're gone for good," he whispered. "She says you're dead to us." My heart broke at his words. We talked in hushed tones. He told me about the constant yelling, how Mom ranted about me being ungrateful, how she took his small savings from birthdays and chores for bills. He was only 12, but he understood it was just more gambling money. My chest felt heavy with guilt. I'd left him alone in this toxic house. "I'm sorry," I whispered, hugging him tight. "I'll fix this, I promise." His thin arms wrapped around me. "I still believe you," he said, voice shaking. I told him about the restraining order, the court case. His eyes flashed with hope, then fear. "Don't let her take me away too," he pleaded. My throat tightened. I knew then I had to protect him, even if it meant going all in on this legal battle. Feeling drained, I visited Mrs. Death, Dolores, after sneaking out of my mom's place. She welcomed me in with warm tea and a worried smile. I sank into her couch, hands trembling from the day's stress. She listened as I recounted the break-in and how my brother was suffering. "I can't see him trapped there," I said, voice trembling. "But I'm scared of what Mom might do." Dolores gently took my hand. "You remind me of myself years ago," she admitted. "I was cast out by my own family. That's why I never married or had kids. I couldn't trust anyone. But you I trust." Then she placed a sealed envelope on the coffee table, her eyes serious. "This is my will. I'm leaving everything to you and your brother. Don't argue," she said when I tried to protest. "You've earned more loyalty than my own flesh and blood ever gave me." Tears welled up. I hardly knew how to respond. "Dolores, I don't want." She cut me off. "No, if something happens to me, I want you two safe." I clutched the envelope against my chest, overwhelmed by her kindness. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen and loved. My brother's tearful face haunted me. I called Child Protective Services, explaining the emotional abuse, the financial neglect, and Mom's gambling. They promised to investigate quietly. But soon, I heard through the grapevine that Mom had pulled my brother out of school, threatening to leave the state. Panic rose in my throat. If she disappeared, I'd lose him forever. The attorney helped me file for emergency guardianship, citing the danger Mom posed. She also pushed a psychologist to do a quick evaluation. My brother's statements about emotional abuse backed our case. Mom retaliated immediately with a countersuit declaring I was mentally unstable and on drugs. She even fabricated screenshots and tried to show them to the judge. The lies were so transparent it was almost laughable, but still terrifying. She was willing to do anything to discredit me. Luckily, my old therapist came forward to testify on my behalf. She had records showing how I'd sought help for stress, not drugs, and how I'd confided in her about Mom's gambling. Her testimony shattered Mom's credibility. But I was shaking inside. This was my mother, who was so desperate she'd slander her own daughter. I knew the next step was the courtroom showdown. The morning of the hearing, I felt my stomach twist with nerves. My attorney guided me through the courthouse's marble halls. I clutched a folder of evidence, receipts, the will, the 529 account details, and the restraining order documents. Mom arrived with a sullen scowl, her lawyer trailing behind. She avoided my gaze. When the proceedings began, my attorney methodically laid out the evidence. The forged documents, the gambling debts, the stolen college fund. I could feel the judge's disapproval toward Mom growing with each piece of proof. When Mom took the stand, she unraveled. She yelled about my ungrateful attitude, blamed Dad's death for her gambling, accused me of lying, and even cursed the judge under her breath. The courtroom fell silent, tension thick in the air. My heart pounded as I testified. I explained how Dad's money was intended for my tuition, how Mom took it all, and how she was emotionally abusing my brother. My voice cracked, but I stayed firm. By the end, the judge's decision was clear. He ruled in my favor, granting me restitution for the stolen funds and temporary guardianship of my brother. Tears streamed down my face as I realized, finally, the law believed me. A few hours after court, I returned to my dorm to collapse in relief. But as I reached my door, I saw Mom standing there, eyes red, hair disheveled. She clutched her purse and asked quietly, "Angela, can we talk? Woman to woman?" Part of me wanted to refuse, but I remembered the small hope that maybe she had finally woken up. I led her into my room. She started to sob, throwing her arms around me. "I'm sorry, honey, I never meant." She choked on her words. My heart ached, wanting to believe her. But I stayed cautious. When she pulled away from our embrace, her hand darted toward my desk. Before I knew it, she grabbed my phone and bolted out the door. Shock hit me like a punch. That phone held everything: contacts, bank info, the audio recordings. I chased her down the hallway shouting. She sprinted into the stairwell and disappeared. But she didn't know I'd already backed up all my files to the cloud for court. The phone was worthless to her now. As I stood there panting, part of me felt heartbreak. Another part felt numb. This was my own mother, stooping to theft again. That was the final straw. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at my dorm. Mom's place of work had fired her. Apparently, word of her financial misconduct and the court case had reached her employer. She worked a government job requiring a clean record. Now it was tarnished. When I read the letter, I felt an odd blend of sadness and relief. I never wanted to see her completely destroyed, but in truth she'd done it to herself. She lied, stole, gambled, and then doubled down with more lies. This was the inevitable result. Some people on social media accused me of turning on my own mother, but many others sent messages of support, saying they'd been in similar situations. That gave me a strange sense of solidarity, like I wasn't the only child who ever had to stand up to a toxic parent. The next day, Mom's final meltdown played out online. She posted rants blaming me for everything, calling me a traitor. Most of our extended family saw the court records were real, and many stopped defending her. She destroyed her own reputation. I didn't celebrate. Instead, I focused on my brother, making sure he settled into his new school near campus. I felt lighter, like a huge weight had been lifted. Months passed. My brother and I lived together in a small apartment near campus. We cooked simple meals, budgeted carefully, and shared chores. Things were hard but peaceful. Then, late one night, I got a phone call from the hospital. It was about Mrs. Dolores. She'd passed in her sleep. I sank onto the couch, tears streaming down my face. She was like a second grandmother to me, always there, always supportive. I hated that I never got to say goodbye. Within days, her lawyer contacted me. I remembered the will she'd shown me, but I never expected what came next. She'd left everything to me and my brother. Not just her tiny house, she had investments, retirement accounts, and a stash of savings. It totaled over $4 million. I broke down sobbing. It wasn't about the money. It was about being chosen. Dolores saw us when no one else did. She believed in me even when my own mother used me. I felt a storm of emotions: gratitude, heartbreak, relief, and guilt that I couldn't thank her in person. Her gift was life-changing. It meant a stable future for my brother and me. But more than that, it was proof that kindness can outlast the worst family betrayal. With Dolores's inheritance, I paid off my modest apartment, set up a trust for my little brother's future, and finished my own degree. I refused to live lavishly. I remembered how money could twist people. Instead, I used part of her legacy to start a nonprofit aimed at helping teens escape financial abuse. I named it after her, the Dolores Foundation. The hardest part was deciding whether to contact my mom. But every time I thought about it, I remembered her final betrayal: stealing my phone, gambling away Dad's legacy, lying in court. She never apologized. She only tried to save herself. So I didn't reach out. I focused on healing. My brother thrived in school. He joined the basketball team, made real friends, and slept peacefully at night without hearing screaming. I had nightmares sometimes, but they faded. One late evening, I packed up my desk at the nonprofit's office, flipping off the lights. I stood there, letting the silence settle in. Dad's dream for me was coming true in a way neither of us imagined. I whispered, "Thank you," to both Dad and Dolores. Mom once called me greedy. But the truth is, I just wanted a life free from her lies. And now, I finally have it.